Hi, welcome to LiTup 365 Spring Session 1. We made it. We are through the season of contemplating essence, and we are now entering the time to express and share who we are with the world. And this is really exciting. This is a very exciting time of year, but we need to remember it won't be perfect. That expression isn't perfect yet. That new seed, that new growth that we've experienced isn't yet clear. We're only just at the beginning of spring. So this time of year to remember is not about perfection. It's about curiosity and about exploration and experimentation. Who am I? Who will I be? We are all having sparks of ideas, but we are still fully culminating how we will experience that. All innovators, all creators have trial and error periods. But instead of thinking of this time of year as trial and error, what I'd like you to do is think of it as a faith building season. This is where we begin to develop that belief in ourselves. We talked last session about signs of spring, and I want to share with you a story of what this means for me, what signs are, because now that we're entering spring, what does it mean to build faith? So I went my very first year of doing Vision Quest. I did 4 years. So in the Lakota tradition, you do 4 Vision Quests, and your Vision Quest should be 4 days, 4 nights. So a total of 96 hours. My first Vision Quest, I lasted only 36 hours. I quit before the second night. And I was filled with regret. Everything in me, all my intuition, all that inner stirring, that innovation, that inspiration was telling me, just stay one more night. Your vision will come with the morning. But I didn't have faith yet. I was so afraid of another night. And trying to be strong through that, through the cold and through the aloneness. Doing Vision Quest, you're alone in the woods. There's not another person nearby. Now, I happened to do my Vision Quest that year where I was near other questers, but they were far enough away that I felt completely alone. So I had all this regret, and people kept telling me after the quest, oh, don't regret. It happened perfectly. It happened the way it was supposed to. And it didn't happen the way it was supposed to. We sometimes want to tell ourselves that, but that's often why we don't have faith, because we want to tell ourselves, oh, it happened the way it was meant to happen when something bad happens. And it didn't happen. I was called by my internal being, my fullness of who I was, to stay one more night. And I didn't. When my sponsor came to check on me in the circle, I left. I quit. And I felt the regret of that because I denied the vision. I denied the inspiration. And this is what we learn to do as children, because we didn't have. When we believed in something, we were told we were wrong. You can't understand. You can't do that. That's not okay. You're not safe. And so sometimes our inspiration that might have led us to great things, we learned to doubt ourselves, to not trust that. If I had more faith in that inspiration, I would have stayed that night. I wanted to believe. In fact, the ironic thing is I did believe in inspiration. I did believe in vision, but I didn't believe in it strong enough to overcome the fear of staying. So my second year of Vision Quest, I lasted 48 hours. But on my third year, I did do the full 96. I did 4 days and 4 nights. And it was so inspired. The second year when I did the 48, I did that to reconcile the failure I had the year before. But when I did the 4 days and 4 nights, it was an honoring of the tradition. It was an honoring of, if I'm doing a real Vision Quest, I'm doing a real Vision Quest, and I'm going to make it through. And I remember during that quest, in fact, during all my Vision Quests, my visions always came with the Morningstar, and the Morningstar became a powerful messenger to me. So, to the indigenous people of our country, the Morningstar is it dawns as a sign. It's meant to be a sign from Great Spirit that we have been given the gift of another day of life. And the indigenous people here didn't live in this assumption that life was just theirs to use. And I think we've lost that. We so expect tomorrow to come that we'll put off our inspiration today. We say we'll do it tomorrow. I'll be stronger tomorrow. I'll get this tomorrow. And we give days away. And that's not, again, our fault. It's something we've learned, but it's of detriment to us. And so I really, when I heard about the Morningstar, I was very inspired about this idea that each day was a gift, and the idea of celebrating the Morningstar and the sign that we had been given another day. For me, on my vision quest, it became a sign that dawn would soon follow, that I had made it through another night. When I was on vision quest, sometimes it was scary. My 4th year vision quest, I did very far away from everyone. I went to the very top of the mountain, out on a precipice, and it took a good 45-minute to an hour hike to get to my location. So I wanted to be alone. I wanted to face myself. And so there were nights where it's scary sometimes to be in the woods alone. I had experiences with wild animals in previous quests that brought out fears in me, but I had this fear to face. I was scared, and sometimes most of the time I was very cold. I'd go out with only one blanket, honoring the tradition of the Lakota people, and being scared and alone and cold. When that Morningstar came, it was that sign. So going out and being in the woods alone 4 nights in a row was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But when I would see Venus rising, when I saw that Morningstar was rising on the horizon, I knew dawn was not far behind it. I knew I could make it another day, because when you're going through the night, you don't know how much time has passed. You don't have a clock or a measurement. It's just cold and it's dark and you're alone. But that Morningstar is that sign that dawn is coming, that gift from Great Spirit, that the day would soon be there. By my 4th year of vision quest, I only needed 3 hours to capture big vision, because I was ready. I was ready to wait for the Morningstar. I was ready to be in the fear and the cold and the alone, knowing that I was there to wait for inspiration, knowing that that's what that dark night was about. So we talk about this, Campbell talks about dark night of the soul, or that saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. Well, spring is our dawn. It's our Morningstar. It's the thing that tells us, it shows us food will grow again, right? We're seeing sprigs of life. It tells us we will be warm and nurtured again. Winter is the hardest season in nature to survive. The indigenous people from all over the world measured life not by years of birthday, but how many winters have you survived? How many winters have you? And they recognized the elders for the strength, for the continents of being able to survive so many winters. And so spring is really about coming out of that hard season that tests our faith. This is a time when faith is restored. And so this is why I want to talk about faith, understanding what true faith is, faith in living, faith in source, and for ourselves to be our source, for us to be our own inspiration. There was a quote from Rumi that said, "You are the divine being that guides you." And I love that concept of having so much faith in our internal being, or so much faith for the inspiration, because whether you feel that inspiration comes from inside, whether you feel it's you, or an external divine being, the wisdom comes from within. It comes through our own experience of it. So whether you feel, regardless of your tradition or your faith, being anywhere from atheist to scientific to very religious or spiritual, all of the inspiration, all of those epiphanal states, when we realize something huge, is an internal experience. So regardless of the source, it is an internal experience of realization. And that's what we want to build our faith in, that we can have that internal experience of realization. Now, I spoke last time about that pushing out, that we're pushing out from within ourselves. And so whatever our belief is, we're pushing that out. And I'm going to address that quite a bit in the article. And so, what we want to connect with is how faith works. A lot of times we do little things and we tend to build faith. We can build faith in external things, which can be devastating. We've had those experiences where we trusted a person or a job or a commitment from someone that didn't come through. And so it can be difficult, but oftentimes that's where the majority of our faith is. But when we can build faith in our own internal belief and our own internal capability, when I become the body of the thought I hold, as my faith in that body grows, as my faith in this energetic being that I am grows, it expands and overcomes the limitations which are not true in my life. My greatest source is within me, regardless of how I define it. Nothing outside of me organizes my life. When I set an intention, my own thoughts access unlimited resources. And we talk about that left-right brain connection. When I set that commitment last session, when I set intention, my own thoughts access unlimited resources. My left brain accesses that right brain to calculate a solution, even if I don't believe it is possible yet. The minute I set the idea that whether I believe it or not, I'm going to commit to my process. This is our Morningstar. This is what spring is. It's our time to build faith. And it requires patience and it requires commitment. So first we must have the patience to wait for our plants to reveal themselves, to sprout from the ground and grow. We must wait for our well to fill. And then we must have the commitment to foster that growth. And so I want to share this wonderful piece that I love that speaks to this from Ralph Bloom's Book of Runes. So I've trimmed it a little, but I want to connect it to what we're talking about. So what Ralph says is, this is a time of beneficial outcomes. It applies to any activity or endeavor to which you are committed. So we talked about that commitment last session, right? I was just saying that it speaks to the things to which we are committed. If we don't commit, if we don't engage in it, it's the same as a plant. You can have plants growing right now, but if you don't foster them, if they don't get food, if they don't get water, if they don't get sunlight, they won't grow. And if they do grow, they won't be the full potential of what they could be, right? So this is that commitment we talked about. And in this moment, this time of year, this season is the spark. This is our Morningstar. This is the experience I've talked about. So now imagine spring as this story I've given you about Vision Quest. Imagine waking to a pre-dawn sky, right? You've been through a long, dark night of the soul. You've been through the deeper parts. Our whole world right now is feeling this. So imagine what's going on now in the world around us, and that we're at that pre-dawn sky. And imagine seeing that morning star on the horizon, knowing that the sun will soon follow. Ralph says, it encourages you to keep your spirits up. Be aware, however, that no quick results can be expected. Always a span of time is involved. Hence the key words 1 year, symbolizing a full cycle of time before the reaping of the harvest or deliverance. So you're not just beginning here. What Ralph is talking about is that full year, but you're not beginning a full year cycle. You've done half your cycle. Our journey began with last year's harvest. You're halfway through this cycle already. You're halfway through this yearly cycle. Ralph goes on to say, you have prepared the ground and planted the seed. Now you must cultivate with care. To those whose labor has a long season, a long coming to term. It is spring, the Morningstar. So you have had the labor already, the long 6 months of reaping your harvest last year, and from that harvest comes the seed, right? Last year's plants contain within them the seed for this year's fruit. And so you've had that labored time already. And now here's your Morningstar, right? Here's your dawn, your dawning sky, and it offers encouragement of success. So now's the time to know that the outcome is in keeping with province. Jera is a term he uses for this rune, which is the key words for it is 1 year, and its counsel is to persevere. This next part is the part I really want you to hear. This part is so important. So Ralph reminds us, remember the farmer who was so eager to assist his crops that he went out at night and tugged on the new shoots. There is no way to push this river. Equally, you cannot hasten the harvest. Be mindful that patience is essential for the recognition of your own process, which in its season leads to the harvest of the self. So in this time of year, from what Ralph says, we're not looking for anything more than we have in this moment. We can't hasten the harvest. We must wait for our fruit to ripen, for that butterfly to reveal itself. That was my final vision quest. I went simply to wait for inspiration. So we need to start asking what inspires us. So I want to do a quick nod over. I'm going to fade over to, I want to give you the definitions from inspiration and expiration. This was a really powerful realization to me. This was like a spark, an epiphany that transformed the entire way I lived my life. So as we look at this, as we look at inspiration, the word inspire means to breathe in air, to inhale, to breathe in life, right? This is how all life begins, with that intake of air. From when you're a baby, that intake of air is where life begins. And it also means, the second definition is to feel with the urge or ability to do or feel something, especially to do something creative. So an example they offer in the dictionary: his passion for romantic literature inspired him to begin writing. Synonyms are stimulate, motivate, encourage, influence, rouse, move, stir, energize, galvanize, and incite. This is powerful. So that's inspiration. Let's look now at expire. Expire is to exhale air from the lungs. So the breath is then expired. You breathe out. I was with my grandmother when she died. And there was a moment where the very last thing she did was exhale. So there was one moment where she exhaled and we all paused. We felt the significance of the moment. And she took in a quick inhale and had a moment where she gazed off and smiled. And it was really inspiring because this was not a woman that smiled a lot. And then she exhaled again. And that was her last moment, was exhaling. Her last moment of existence was an exhale. The synonyms for this are breathe out, exhale, blow out, expel. This is expression, right? That the minute we inhale inspiration, we exhale that out into the world. This is how life works. But to breathe out means to cease to be valid, typically after a fixed period of time. The old contract had expired. Synonyms are run out, become invalid, become void, lapse. Now, part of this we can look at is kind of staggering and a bit startling. And so I want to address that, because this idea of inspiration being life and expiration being death can really wake us up. It can say, wow, if I'm not inspired, if I'm not living in this state, I'm dying, right? If we are not inspired, we are expiring, ceasing to be valid. It's how nature works. But understand that this is happening all day, every day. We inspire, we expire, right? We breathe in, we breathe out. When we were in primal survival models, we breathed in from the world around us. This is how we became valid. We found our inspiration from the external world, making decisions based on that external world and how it worked. Of course, we speak all the time to the fact that we can no longer depend on the world for our inspiration. We can no longer depend on the world to feed us. Look at where it is. Look at where our world is right now. Look what we're experiencing right now. We need to feed the world. It feeds us early when we're young and developing, but now more than ever, it needs us to feed it to create something new. And the beautiful thing about it is that it may seem intimidating to create, but again, we're doing it all day. Every breath in, every breath out. We are exhaling who we are into the world. And so this opportunity is here to continually renew. At any moment, I can become inspired and exhale something beautiful into the world. The thing is, though, is that this is, what are we expiring? What are we breathing out into the world? Because if I'm filled with fear inside, I love, Ernest Holmes has a quote that says, fear is just misplaced faith. And I love that. He's saying we're having faith in the thing we fear. Well, if my inspiration is fear, I'm exhaling fear into the world. But I breathe in and out all day long, so I can change that. I can continually change it. I don't breathe in once and exhale once. I'm not bound to the mistakes I make. They're just mistakes. So if I remember that I can always just breathe in again, I can try again, I can do it again. And that's what spring is about, is we're figuring out how to navigate and how to grow into who we are. This is about coming into infinite life, about coming into, I can always inhale again. I can always receive new inspiration. So even if I become lost in any moment, I can turn that around. And that's brilliant. That life is about continuing inspiration, but our inspiration now must come from within. We must inspire ourselves by what we have the ability to bring into the world, by our expression of who we are. This is the best thing we can give, who we are, because we can give it better than anyone. And we can constantly inspire ourselves to become more. Again, and this is a thing we have full control over is ourselves and our expression. And so though we can't control the subconscious mind, we can listen to it. We can be inspired by it. We can let it wake us up. We keep talking about wanting to control, to have the conscious mind alter the subconscious. The subconscious is the more evolved part of our brain. It's the part that should inspire us. To alter it is, first of all, a near impossibility. Also, it's making it less than the full potential of what we could be. It is what creates life in us. It is what expands outward. Fruit grows from within trees. They don't draw apples to them. Apples grow from the center of who they are. The spider's webs come from within to create this beautiful art, and they're continually creating that web. I mean, look at the size of the spider and the webs they create. That is them pouring something out. It all begins at the core, at the center of who we are, and it expands out. Who we are is a ripple. We are continually happening, continually expanding. So our only attention to pay is what ripple are we creating? And we want to create that, again, such a strong signal within us that it needs to break free. And it's about creating the beauty of who we are, because all of us in this core are beautiful. If there is any aspect of ourselves that we feel is not beautiful, it is not the core of who we are. It is us not expressing the core of who we are. We need to let that expression break free. And now is the time to do it. Spring is here. It is time to expand outward, to bloom. It's time to start expressing ourselves, and to be patient and committed, to be patient in our process, to let that revelation happen, and to know it won't always be perfect. But as long as we stay committed to it, we will bring as much of that perfection from the core of who we are into the world as is possible. So I have a few exercises we're going to dig into, and from there, I really hope you enjoy this journey. This is a time to be excited about what will happen next. Even if you're unsure, you will be unsure, because it's early spring. We won't be sure till summer. So allow yourself to be unsure, but enjoy the new season, to enjoy what spring has to offer, to enjoy that revealing of infinite life. So again, I hope you enjoy your journey, and I look forward to seeing you at the next session.